recording. All right, thank you everybody for joining us for the resident panel today at Ida Culver House Ravenna. We have here with us today Miss Mary Geiger, Miss Eileen Long, and Miss Jessie Cornwell. Eileen, do you want to do a quick introduction?
Sure. I was born in California, but raised in Everett, Washington until I came to Seattle to go to the big university at the University of Washington. And I have resided in and out of the state of Washington for the rest of my life.
Excellent, thank you. Jessie.
I grew up in Colorado and lived in Colorado and Montana before I moved to Washington State, and I moved to Washington State 15 years ago to both retire and watch my grandson grow up.
Mary's here with us as well. Hello, Mary.
Hi. Well, I was born in Juneau, but we moved down to Washington when I was 4. So I've been in mostly Seattle ever since. And my roots in Washington through my mom go back to 1850s. So I figure I'm a native. I had all my schooling here. I went to Seattle U and graduated in nursing and worked at Children's for a long time, over 30 years. And when I retired, my husband died about 10 years ago, and it just seemed that it was kind of silly for me to be knocking around in this big house. And the neighborhood was changing a lot of townhomes going up. And I just decided the time was right to find someplace else to live. And I looked at a couple places. I looked here, and the family feel here made me want to come. And I've been here about 1.5 years now.
Thank you for that. That was nice. Eileen, how long have you been here? What made you decide to that it was the time to move?
Well, my family was in the process of change. My son had moved to France, fell in love, married a lovely French lady, and they are my French family with a grandson. And my daughter was living with me at the time. She was just recovering from surgery, recovered enough so she was ready to go back out and have her own apartment. And my husband, my loving husband, was already residing at an adult family home. He had medical conditions that meant that I could not take care of him at home. So suddenly I was left with an empty nest, and it was time. And I'm glad I moved when I did. I moved in just before Christmas of 2013. And instead of spending the holiday in an empty house, trying to get it ready to be brought up to snuff and put on the market, I had a wonderful room that it's the one I'm in right now. And when I saw it, I just said, I can live here. So it was a moving experience right before Christmas, and it worked out beautifully.
That sounds nice. Jessie, was your experience similar? What made you decide to
Well,
go ahead and make the move?
I had lived in South Seattle, just north of Columbia City, and then some circumstances changed, and my children encouraged me to find a facility like Ida Culver. And I looked at several, and this one was like the second one I looked at, and I kept coming back to it. The thing that initially was such a welcoming, noteworthy, the landscapings in the garden and back, because that's so unique and makes this place so very special. And then moving became quite an adventure. And after I had moved and downsized some, but not as much as I needed to, shortly after I moved in, I had some medical problems. And so I was very grateful then, and continue to be very grateful for the special care you can get when it's needed, even though I'm independent most of the time.
Excellent. That sounds pretty good. Different routes, but well, let me ask you. I was going to say that sounds like everybody's content here. Mary, would you say that's the case?
Yeah, I'm very happy I moved, very happy. And I'm younger than most of the people here, but still there's an awful lot of independent people and then some who need assistance too. And everybody's so friendly and it's so easy to make friends. So, and the staff, I can't say enough about the staff. They're fabulous. They got us through the COVID stuff, that's for sure.
What was that?
That was,
Mary?
that was a
So they got us
big,
through the COVID stuff quite well.
You think we handled the COVID stuff quite well?
Yes.
the COVID stuff, how the COVID stuff was handled here is phenomenal as far as I'm concerned.
Mhm.
I was one of the quote lucky or unlucky ones, I guess, who was initially diagnosed with COVID, though asymptomatic at the very beginning. And so the extra care that I received when I needed it at that time, and then the ongoing surveillance for COVID and all of the other things have just been incredible. I couldn't have asked for anything better.
And being able to get the vaccinations here in January and February, I mean, that's pretty good.
Yes.
Yes, Eileen.
I had three criteria. I had three criteria for what I was looking for. And I think the first one was that I wanted a small but friendly community to move into. And I found that the very first day. Secondly, I asked if I could bring my beads. And they said, well, of course you can bring your beads, thinking I meant my jewelry. But no, I've got a lot of beads and I teach beading. And for those first, well, ever since until COVID, I was able to offer a class in bead making to all the residents that wanted to. And that was wonderful for me and wonderful for them. And then the third thing, I saw the garden and I loved it. Even though it was winter, I could see the potential. And I asked, will I be able to dig in the garden? And they said, what do you mean? I said, I'm a gardener. And I am a member of a pea patch, but as I retire, I will be giving that up. And I be able to poke in a few posies here and there. And they said, of course. And I said, can I wear blue jeans to the dining room? They said, yes, as long as they're clean. And I said, I can't guarantee they will be. It's been what I needed to really sustain me and to, those were the resources I needed. And this was the right place. And I'm just really appreciative of it.
Yeah, there were a couple of things for me also with, I had a lot of planters in my yard. I said, can I bring a couple along? And they said, yes. And we have a balcony that has lots of planters on it. And I ended up inheriting that for my bailiwick for gardening. So there's all sorts of ways to get in gardening. And then also they allow pets. So I could bring my cat. And I couldn't have moved in here if I couldn't have brought my cat.
And I just wanted to add a note to Eileen's conversation about the beading. That she's done the beading classes, and I've taken some of them. And this is a wonderful example of the activities that different residents provide for other residents, and to make things more interesting and ways we can be involved. And I just really want to emphasize that is makes it so much easier to get acquainted and to find activities you can enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Fantastic. Maybe I should move in a couple of years early. Sounds pretty nice. I think I touched on this earlier with you, but how was lunch today?
It's good.
Enjoyed it.
Jesse, what did you have?
Oh, I had part of the kielbasa. Yeah, the sandwich, the featured sandwich. I always like the fruit, so.
Okay.
I want to talk about what did we have for lunch, because it was a good lunch and there's a lot of variety and people with special needs. But I can't begin to tell you the relationship between the residents and the staff,
Yes.
especially
Yes,
the
yes.
serving staff. It doesn't take them long before they know your name. It doesn't take them long before who has caffeinated and who has decaf or who is trying to give up the cookies. It's just that real personal attention of being, of your needs and your idiosyncrasies being met by a staff which is not just patient with us, but very helpful and very friendly.
Jesse, you would agree?
Oh, absolutely. And it's wonderful. And even, if we feel we want to talk to the chef, whoever's on duty, they're always very happy to talk to us and listen if we have any suggestions or want to know things about something. And any of them do this. And I always, the cooking staff and the head staff, if they need to step in for a reason, they're more than willing to do it.
Excellent.
And if we need, well, during COVID, of course, we were getting meals all the time in our own apartments. But if we need them for any certain time, they're more than happy to bring us meals in our apartments for those that need it or those that want it right now. And
Sure.
that's a nice thing to have. I enjoy being in the dining room and seeing people and visiting.
Uh-huh. Well, that's an interesting point. Mary, you mentioned this earlier, and maybe had kind of a question on, Jesse, you mentioned visiting with people, and Mary, you mentioned meeting people. Can you tell me a little bit more about what that was like, meeting people here? Was it super simple? Was it maybe a little awkward at first, but eventually came through? Did you know some people here? Mary, what was your experience like?
Well, I didn't know anybody before I moved in, but just going, it was before COVID, so I could go to the dining room, and a couple times I would sit by myself, but then eventually people would come over and introduce themselves, and like they had activities, including like a card game in the activity room, which interested me. So I went down there and I met the people who were playing cards, and just everybody's welcoming. It's very unusual to get somebody who's standoff. So, I mean, it takes a little bit of effort on my part, but not much. I mean, people were great. The other thing that impresses me is the staff, even the ones that I don't really interact directly with, they know your name. They see you in the hall and they can call you by name. And that means so much. It really does.
Mm-hmm. And I would add to what Mary said, that when I first moved in, they had here, and I think we still do it, but it's kind of gotten a little bit set aside for COVID, was what they called a friend host. And this was a person, another resident who lived here, who made an extra effort to introduce you to the community, maybe to visit, to eat with you the first time or two, and to explain some of the things and show you around in the community. And that was such a wonderful beginning for me.
Yes, I forgot that, but that was very helpful.
Eileen, yes, go ahead. Yes, please.
I want to say a little bit about community, because that was a very important thing for me. And I've been in and out of at least most of the retirement residents in the city of Seattle, visiting friends or just looking around. And so I had the opportunity to take the time to look around. And I think that's a good idea. And I wanted the warm community. I wanted to make new friends and keep the old. But I'm also a person that has to have my quiet time, my alone time. And the nice thing is that the community and the activities are right outside our door. Who we want in our room is up to us. When we need that time for reading or solitude or whatever, we have it and people respect it. So it's a nice balance here of having both your privacy and you're the one that can figure out what you want to do with your day and your goings and comings. But the other thing too, in terms of the community, is that we really celebrate the holidays. And that's important to me because I'm a holiday person. But I also, from my circumstances, did not have family all around me. at holiday time. And we celebrate the holidays here in a beautiful way. And that is also part of being a family as of residents as well as a community.
Fair point. That's true.
Well, I want to add too, we're not the only ones that enjoy the dining room. Before COVID and hopefully soon, we can have family members come and join us for a meal. Just let the kitchen know ahead of time. We can celebrate birthday parties in a private dining room and invite either family, friends, or family to join us there. There are lots of opportunities for friends and family to come into our place of residence, just like we could invite them into our home beforehand.
Excellent. Thank you for making that point. A few people have joined us since we started, so I'm just going to take a second to reintroduce myself. I'm the Community Relations Director here at Ida Culver House Ravenna. We have Mary Geiger, Jesse Cornwell, and Eileen Long with us. If you have questions, which questions may be coming up now, just remember to scroll down to the bottom of your Zoom screen, and there's a little chat box. You can type them in there. Any question is a good question, and we will review those. So I wanted to jump to, and this is yes, Mary, go ahead.
Just one thing I thought of, for people who still have cars, there is secure parking here, and it's very handy to be able to have your car and not have to worry about it and having to park it on the street or something. So there aren't too many spaces, but not all that many people drive. But if you still have a car, you have a place to put it, and that's very helpful also.
Yes, Eileen.
And if you don't have a car, we have both a little bus and a van that when we sign up for them ahead of time, we can have transportation to the doctor and the dentist. And we also have shopping days. We also have the bus taking us out on frequent visits to different parts of the community. So it was hard for me when it was time to give up my car, but I was surprised how many resources there are right here. Plus the public bus is right outside the front door to connect us with almost everything north, south, east, and west.
Thank you for that addition. So that brings up an interesting point. As you know, I'll just reiterate two things. I'm a new member of the community. I've only been in this role about a month. Everybody's been incredibly welcoming. It's just sort of a tone of being welcoming. Even these three ladies were very welcoming to me in this event. And Mary and Eileen, you touched on something that I thought, Jesse, you might have something to add. I don't know. I get this impression that when people are thinking about coming in here, that they're going to lose their autonomy, their freedom, that somehow they're not going to be in charge of, their driving, when they want to go, where they want to go. Has that been your experience?
No, I would say that when I moved here, I was still very involved in the community. I was volunteering a couple mornings a week at the Seattle Cancer Care Alliance, helping my handicapped daughter out, and just coming and going several days a week. And when we struck COVID, that really became a turnaround for me, because not going anywhere or doing anything when I've been doing all of these things was something that it took me a while to get used to. But before COVID, there was no problem with where I went and when I went, and we just, everybody, I signed in and out when I needed to go. And everybody was very kind and very understanding about it. And sometimes I rode the city bus, and sometimes I took other forms of transportation. So it all worked for me, and I was very grateful. And I'd done my volunteering for several years and helped my daughter for several years. So it was wonderful to be able to continue those, plus the other things I do.
Mary, it seems like you might have something to add.
No, it's just, they ask you to sign in and out so they know if somebody's gone, because And like overnight, we have to press a button to say that we're up and moving and that kind of thing, just to let them know everything's okay. But those are very minor things, and there's no thing of restriction of like, where do you think you're going or anything. There's nothing like that. It's just they feel a responsibility to know that where we are, and that's fine, but there's no restriction at all. So now that
Okay.
we're almost out of COVID, there isn't.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and the restrictions were put there for COVID, no other reason.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we are still in COVID, and that's going to be a change coming out of that. I mean, everybody's been vaccinated, and things are opening up, and there's, the weather's turning a little better, so we have some more outside time. So you mentioned change, and all three of you said well, at least two of you had mentioned to me that you were unlikely to participate had I not been clear and open about some of the changes that are going to be happening here. So as most of you might have heard on the webinar, in about 18 to 24 months, so somewhere in the 2-year mark, 1.5 to 2-year mark, seems like there's going to be some major renovations here. We let everybody know, what would you say, about 4 weeks ago. We're in the very initial stages of knowing what that's going to look like exactly and the details, but we wanted to let everybody know kind of way ahead of time, so they're, to allow people to get adjusted. What has been your impression of how Ida Culver and Era Living more broadly has handled that in the initial stages of kind of being as clear and transparent about what's going to happen has been?
Well, my first of all was my gratitude that they had called not only the residents together for a meeting, but they had also called the staff together for a meeting, and they had also reached out to our neighbors. We're quite a part of this community, and our neighbors have been. It's a pleasant neighborhood. It is a living neighborhood of other families and with children, dogs, and things. So my initial response that they were going to be upgrading the premises was, thank goodness. It's always a time to upgrade oneself. And what better time than now, sooner rather than later. So I began to dream about what Ida Culver Ravenna can be like in the future. And of course, the first question that came up was, will the garden remain? And the answer was yes. We are a very unusual campus in that we have, if you haven't seen it, it's hard to describe it, but it's a beautiful in the city garden with huge old fir trees and pine trees and maple trees and aspen. And there's a dogwood tree that must be 5 stories high, full bloom. So
right now we have a fantastic rhododendron blooming out there too.
So that is one of the heart and souls of our campus. So that will remain. But what will come is a new premise with good plumbing, with elevators that can hold more people and furniture for people moving in. And I began to see all the assets. So yes, it's going to require a change, but and for us, yeah, we'll have to do some thinking about that with our families and with management, who has also promised us some resources. But I think what we gain in the future is a beautiful updated building that will really serve our community. And I'm glad that it's going to stay right here because it is a lovely environment outside the building as well as inside.
Well put. Mary, Jesse, any thoughts on that?
I feel pretty much the same as Eileen. I mean, it's upsetting because it'll probably mean we have to move for a certain amount of time, and that's always an adjustment. But I think hearing it without hearing rumors beforehand was extremely helpful. like we were the first to hear about it pretty much. And I respect that. And I think that shows respect on management's part for us. And I appreciate that very much. So it will be an adjustment. I mean, I'm not too worried about it right now. I've got lots of time, but I mean, that is coming up. But like Eileen says, what it's going to be like when it's finished, I think is going to be such an improvement, especially there's basically two buildings, and the older building was built for retired teachers in, I think it's 1949 or thereabouts. It's pretty old. And even the newer building is getting to the point that major upgrades, I think, will be very advantageous.
And Jesse, sounds like you also are excited about, or have some mixed feelings about, or hopeful that the integrity of the garden will be maintained.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's got to be there with everything else. And I would agree with what both Eileen and Mary have said, and that all of these things are wonderful things to look forward to in the future. And the fact that they have plans for keeping us informed as they are making progress to this new future state of Ida Culver, with and not only the residents, but our families and the community. This is very important, and that we stay there as it moves along. And I'm really glad that they've already told us that this was happening. Some of the residents, I haven't really noticed that, have noticed that there's surveyors in the yard and around the neighborhood. And I think it just helps for them to know what's going on, that this is one of the steps. And it would have been rather hard to acknowledge, well, what is going on, as if they hadn't been open with us and honest about it.
Fair. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's sort of a mixed bag of sentiments on that, but got to kind of be open a little bit about what's going to happen. So I too look forward to the garden being in great shape. It is in beautiful shape right now. We still have at least 2 summers to enjoy it. So if anybody has never been here, I think Eileen and Jesse also mentioned something that painted a nice picture of it. And maybe you saw the Cisco gardening webinar. We had that in. So I'll remind everybody that we're excited to take some questions. If you have some questions, feel free to type them in the chat box, or if you don't want to type the whole question, just let me know you have a question at least, and I can share that with our resident panel. While those are coming in, I'll ask another kind of question. So, one thing I was curious about is, did you end up meeting people here who all had similar interests, or did you get exposed to new things since you've been here? Jesse, you wanna answer that?
Well, I've met people with similar interests. I also have been exposed to new things, and there are people here who enjoy some of the same things that were important to me and that I've noticed, and that's been wonderful. But also being interested to new things and seeing how some of the people who are here, some of their interests, and learning from them. We have people who are interested in current events, and other people who are interested in art, and those that are a combination. And there's always many things to learn new. So I'm enjoying some of the widening circles of knowledge.
Mary?
There's just a wide variety of people here, so the possibilities are kind of endless.
Cool.
I have a little friendly advice. What you're looking for, you people that have so nicely come to this webinar, and I'm glad you did. And one of our first questions was, when did you move in, and was it the right time? Moving from a family home or apartment to a senior residence is quite a change in some ways, but it needn't be a change in your own personal life. because anyone that moves throughout their life has some inner resources as well as being dependent on outer resources. And so I encourage people to really to look at what are the things that nourish you, what are the things that are important to you, and to try to find a good fit for your next move, whatever it is. But my advice is don't wait too long.
Mhm.
There is so much here at Ida Culver that I was able to use when I first came, which was 8 years ago. And it's just important that you make this move while you are still young in heart and while you can still be adjusting and that you can think clearly on what it is you want and what it is you need. It's a sad thing for me to see people who are moving in at the very end of their life. And so, although their needs are met here in many beautiful ways, they aren't always able to get out in the garden and they aren't always able to do the exercise class. So it's a good thing to look at where you are in your own life and where your energies are and where your disabilities are, and find a good match and go for it.
Mhm.
So Mary, you said you don't feel like you moved too soon, did you?
No, I really don't. I probably would have stayed in my house a couple more years if the neighborhood wasn't going to change so much. But that was okay, and I'm happy that I came. And I think it's a gift to your family if you can make the decision to come here, so that you don't have to wait until you're getting kind of what Eileen said. You're old and you can't handle things, and your family has to run around doing all this work to figure out what the best place for you is. It's a gift to your family to make the decision yourself, I think.
Yes.
You agree, Jesse?
Oh, absolutely. My family have been very happy that I've been here and very appreciative of all of the extra things that I've needed and that were so well taken care of, which in many ways freed them so that they didn't have to feel responsible, when they have their own lives and their own challenges.
So what I'm hearing is what you're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, that there's less of a danger in coming in a little early than coming in too late.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
That you might miss out on some fun. It may be a little harder to adjust if you wait a little too long.
Mhm.
Well, if you come in maybe sooner than you were initially planning, you might actually get some benefits out of that you weren't expecting.
Exactly.
For sure.
Okay. Well, we're doing an excellent job of covering people's questions because we're not getting a lot of outside questions. So I'll ask again, if anybody has some questions, feel free to type them in, or if you want to turn your video on and raise your hand, I'm happy to do it that way. But for the most part, I think we've covered a lot of ground. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Well, once again, my name is Al Valle. I think I'm the community relations director here. I think most folks on the Zoom have visited our community. Okay, here's a question. Let's see. This one's probably for me. Here's one. Okay, what happens if you fail to press the panic button at night? So I'm guessing you mean if you're in a situation, I'm guessing what Mike is asking is if you're in a situation where, and please, Mike, feel free to correct me, if you're in a situation where you need some help, and let me see if the question's correct, Mary, and then I got you, I think.
Because I don't think you got it correct.
Oh, I don't. Okay, so he says, what happens if you fail to press the panic button at night is what he said. Go ahead and respond to that.
it's not really a panic button. It's just a button that says you're awake.
In the
And
morning.
don't press it, you'll get a phone call. And you just say, I'm fine. And that's pretty much.
And that's good. But let me say that also, if you have a problem in the middle of the night, we have several pull cords where we can call for help in the middle of the night if we need help. You know, a couple of times I've needed extra help in the middle of the night, and by pulling the panic button or the cord, then somebody is there just as quickly as they can get here. It's one of the aides that's on duty at night, and they will do whatever is needed to have you to take care of you.
Yeah. So there's two things. There's just the first is a check-in button, and the other is a pull cord that's a panic button.
For emergencies, yes.
Eileen, you had one in your screenshot there. Do you want to share it again?
Yeah.
All right. There you go.
And you just pull it.
You just pull it if you need some help. And if we don't hear from you in the morning, like Mary's saying, if you don't check in the morning, if you don't press the button, which is on the same module, but not the same cord, then we will come in and check in on you in the morning. If the only other thing that I can think of is that Mike might be referring to is if you are in a situation where you need some help and you're not in proximity to the cord, we do offer the pendants that go around your neck.
Yes.
And people use those, and you know, even if they may not need them, it's sort of an extra level of security. Eileen, you had something to say?
Yes, yes. This is a minor detail, but important. Don't burn the toast in your toaster. Kitchens, I hadn't used my toaster for a long time, and I plunked in a beautiful piece of bread, and I could smell it. And the next thing I know, an alarm went off in the kitchen, and if I hadn't stopped the whole process, we would have had the fire engine here real quick. So there are some other safety devices around. There are sprinklers in our apartments. There's regular fire alarm drills. They do an awful lot to keep us safe. And then we also watch out for each other. So
Yes.
it is, I feel safer here than I did at home by myself.
Excellent. Jesse, you had something to say?
Well, I was going to say that here's what the pendant looks like, and you can also get it and a bracelet. These are good only on the campus, our campus. And it's a small charge every month. And my children are happy to have me pay for this, and I've used it a few times. You probably see advertised that there are ones that people can wear that will get you help no matter where you are. But the pendant that they give us ordinarily is only good on our campus, but it's very useful if you need it.
Excellent. All right, here's a question that probably will go to me. Could you explain what will happen? This is from Leanne. Could you explain what will happen to the residents during construction? Will they be able to live in their apartments?
No.
So the answer to that is, what the residents decide to do. Well, let me answer in two parts. No, they will not be able to, as far as we know right now, no, we will not be able to have any folks living here because, number one, even if the final plans, and again, we're in the very initial stages of this, right? Even if the plans dictate that only the back half of the building, which some of you have mentioned, are the parts that you see the most necessary upgrades to, even if it's only the back half of the facility, of the community, of the buildings, the back building, the one that will have the most work done on it, that is the part that houses the kitchen. So it's going to be tough to continue having folks living here if we're not able to properly feed them 3 times a day like we have promised to do. So so the short answer to that is unlikely. Now, the second half is, could you explain what will happen to the residents during the construction? So the phrasing is interesting because, again, the residents are in control of their own lives. Obviously, you know, this construction is going to have an effect, but there's a couple options, and everybody's going to decide what they want to do on their own, right? These are month-to-month agreements. Somebody could leave tomorrow if they wanted to. I think a lot of folks are going to, it seems like after about a month of having known what's going to happen, it seems like a lot of folks are going to stay for as long as as long as it's possible, or they feel like staying, a year and a half to 2 years. And then they will either decide to move to another community within an area of living, which we will help facilitate with all the logistics of that. It's likely that we're going to create some programs to recognize that this is an inconvenience, and also, you know, prioritize you moving back to this location, because there's a lot of people that just like physically where it is in Seattle and want to move back here. And, you know, if you've been living here or you're on the wait list, obviously you're going to have first priority. And again, we're going to try to recognize that this has been an inconvenience, and hopefully it will be worth, and I know it's going to be worth the effort when the garden is back in, and it's a more comfortable and more inviting place to live. So having said that, you know, I hope that doesn't sound overly diplomatic, but we're in the initial stages of this, so we don't ever want to promise more than we can deliver. So let's see, the next question we have from Miss Betsy Crary. What do you wish you knew before you moved in? Anybody want to start? We can take a second. That seems like one to think about, doesn't it? Jesse, sounds like you had a thought.
Well, I think what I should have known a little bit more before I moved in was that I moved from a 2-bedroom apartment to a 1-bedroom apartment. And what I didn't do was to downsize my things nearly as much as I should have. So now I'm trying to I've got set a goal, since we may be moving in, you know, a year and a half, that by the time I'm ready to move, I will definitely have downsized to a more realistic collection of things. So I think that that's a very important thing when you go to move into a space like this, that you are aware of how much room you will have and what's going to fit and what you want to have with you the most.
I had the opposite problem. I moved in at least 3 or 4 months earlier than I had anticipated. And so I had a whole house that I had to downsize very quickly and get out of the way so the contractor could come into our family home and bring it up to snuff to put it on the market. So it's without saying, I had a very rapid transition, and I was not able to download enough to fit into my apartment. So they gave me a storage unit upstairs, and I'm sorry to admit it's still full of some of the boxes that I brought 8 years ago, with the promise that I would go through, sort them, and get rid of the stuff. So
That's where I am.
Take a look at where you are, because life is going to ask you to downsize. And it is so much better to take the time and be thoughtful about it, and to get some of the family members to help you with it. I didn't think my daughter would really be that interested in going through my stuff, but she is interested in me getting rid of it. So yeah, take a good look, not at only am I ready to move, where do I want to move, but what is the process of downsizing? What is the process of selling property? What is, you know, what if? So that's just a little bit of personal confession.
Mary, any confessions you'd like to share?
No, I don't have an answer to that question. I mean, I feel like I was well prepared and knew what was going on, and I had a plan to move here, do the estate sale for the house, get it ready to sell. And I had a really good real estate agent, and it closed right when COVID hit. And my daughter had power of attorney, so she could sign the papers because I couldn't get out to do it. So it all worked pretty well. And I was very fortunate with that.
They also have offered through Era Living symposiums on downsizing and that have been very, very helpful. I just didn't follow through on doing it.
Yeah, you know, it's sort of a unique situation here, what we have going forward. And one of the things I've been mentioning to potential residents, and, you know, I'm going to ask, this is a question from me to you. I don't know how useful of insight this is or not. It occurred to me that to a degree, the fact that there's a set timeline for somebody who is hesitant about making a true commitment and has some anxiety around, you know, what life is going to look like in a senior residence, that a hard stop or a sort of an imposed timeline may be an opportunity to, in a sense, you know, try out what living here is going to be like. How much stuff are you going to need? What's essential? What's not essential? What are your thoughts about that? Is that something that you think would be useful or not?
To be honest with you, I'm not sure exactly what you mean.
So I'm saying the possibility of coming to live here for 1.5 to 2 years, you know, knowing that in 2 years we're going to have to make a change, might afford you the opportunity to, you know, test out, feel like what it's like living here, what, you know, and then go into the next situation, you know, much more prepared, much more aware of what you're getting into, and, you know, with a kind of greater consciousness without having really to fully commit here because there's an imposed timeline.
That is like a stepping stone for future. I mean, a good place to land and get your house taken, if you have property, get rid of and do all that. And then just see where you are in 2 years and what your next move is. That this would still be a very useful option for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse, any thoughts? Don't have to have.
No, I really think that by living here and knowing that it's going to be for a limited time under the current conditions, it will prepare you to be more ready or more flexible in the future, I think.
Okay. All right. So I got another question for you all. Thank you to Betsy, and thank you to Mike. Thank you to Leanne for those questions. They're very good questions. Had one other question for you. What are you looking forward to in the next months? Either here in the community or outside. Go ahead, Eileen. It seems like you got something. Go ahead, Eileen.
Okay. As long as that garden and I are in the same place, we will be planting, going to the garden store this Thursday. We do have what we call a loose affiliation. We call it Friends of the Garden. And there are about 8 of us that do garden, some of them just in a planter, and some of them in the dirt, and some of them on raised beds. But we will be doing planting for the spring. We have a wonderful company that does our professional gardening. And of course, if you come and visit, you'll see what both the front of the building and the garden are like. And it's a wow experience. So they've already prepared new hanging baskets in the patio and a whole range of new flowers and plantings. So spending some time in the garden is certainly going to be one of the things I'm going to do. And the other is I'm going to get at some of those boxes up in the storage unit. And then I can play games with myself. If I empty a box then I can go out and play with the flowers, and the plants.
Mary, Jesse?
Well, I think that in the next few months, I'm just going to start, I'm trying to get rid of things and downsize. And I have a friend, and her latest philosophy of doing this was that whatever the day of the month is, like today's the 12th, you should get rid of 12 things, And if you take the month and you get rid of that number of items each day, by the end of the month, it's something like over 400, I think you're getting rid of when you add all of the days of the month together. So that sounds like a good goal to try to put that in. I don't know. I think you count each piece of paper maybe as one piece, So I'm working on that.
Oh. Mary?
The things I'm looking forward to are being able to continue to do more things. I mean, there's more activities here, but I wanted to travel a lot more than I've been able to travel, and I'm scheduled for a trip in August. I don't know if it'll come through. I was originally going to go last March, and then I rescheduled for this March, wrong. But I may be able to go in August. If not, I'll have to put it off again. But even just local travel, I want to get out and be able to do a lot more things. And I think that's coming in the next few months. So that makes me pretty happy, as well as doing the normal things around here and taking care of my little pots up on the 4th floor balcony. Pots.
I'm going to say that these are two of our very best gardeners that we have here at Ida Culver. And one of the things that I appreciate most is their hard work and all the things they do to beautify our garden and how much they enjoy it. So you get to help enjoy it just from seeing their enthusiasm.
That's fun.
Wow.
And I already have enjoyed going back to the swimming pool.
Yes.
At Aljoya, our sister residence, we get to go once a week with a lovely little saltwater pool in a lovely jacuzzi hot tub. And yes, there are more things opening up every week now. As Seattle opens up, so do the senior residents. And our staff has been so thoughtful about, as soon as we can, getting us into these activities that let us out of the house and also let some of our family and friends into the house.
Fantastic. So it sounds like what I'm hearing is summer's on the way, the garden is happening, COVID is opening up a little bit, the pool. So life pre-pandemic will be enjoyed here in the next few months.
Yeah, we're not there yet, but bit by bit, we're getting there.
I agree.
Yeah, and every step forward is to be appreciated. That's
correct. Well, we are pretty much at the end of our time here. I think it's been a pretty good session. I hope we answered most of the questions. There's one I will respond to directly. Sounds like if you folks haven't had a chance to come see the garden, this is a good opportunity to do so. You're welcome to email me, al.valle@araliving.com. You're also welcome to call me at 206-523-7315. I want to thank Mary Geiger. I want to thank Eileen Long. I want to thank Jesse Cornwell. These were names that, obviously I'm a little newer in the community, so were suggested to me, and it's very clear to me why. There's a lot of great insight and nice manner of speaking that I enjoy. So I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. And with that, we will sign off. This is going to be recorded. So it is being recorded. So remember to look at this on YouTube. I think it will be posted to our site on YouTube. And if you can't find it or you want it sent to your email, I'm happy to do that. And we look forward to seeing you here in the garden. Thank you to Mary. Thank you to Eileen. Thank you to Jesse. Thank you to everybody who joined us. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.